The holly and the ivy. Two Christmas symbols we take for granted. We see them everywhere. They make Christmas look beautiful and give us excitement and happiness when we use them for decorations. And yet, do we even know why or how these Christmas traditions got started? Well, sit back and relax as we learn the history of the holly and the ivy. The holly plant was a symbol to many cultures during many times in history. But its Christmas origin goes way back in ancient Rome. The Romans worshipped many gods, and as they conquered other civilizations, they would adopt their gods as well. One god they worshipped was named Saturn, or in Latin, Saturnus, whom the Greeks called Cronus. Saturn was the god of agriculture, justice, and strength. The Romans created a holiday of feasting to worship Saturn. This feast was called Saturnalia. Saturnalia was celebrated during mid-December after the farmers have finished their autumn planting. Saturnalia was a time when slaves could treat their masters with disrespect and act as free men. Their masters would serve them a feast, and informal clothing was worn by everyone. Children would get out of school and receive gifts from adults. Gambling was allowed in public, and all sorts of wild behavior was accepted. The holly was one of the symbols for Saturn. The Romans would grab ivy vines and weave in holly branches to make garland for decorations. People believed holly brought good luck and protect their sown crops. The Romans also believed ivy helped cure hangovers. But how did holly and ivy enter Christmas? After all, Christmas is a Christian holiday, not a pagan one. Around 40 AD, after Jesus Christ ascended into heaven, Christianity was born. Most of the first Christians were Jews. These Christians still practice their Jewish holidays, but soon the Christian faith spread among the Gentiles. Those are people who are not Jews. These Christians were mostly Roman citizens, like from Greece, Africa, and Asia Minor. Many were also slaves, like from German tribes, Britain, and Gaul. They didn't have holidays to celebrate Jesus. But this will soon change. It was July 19th, 64 AD. Rome, the capital city of the Roman Empire, was on fire, literally. Rumors spread that the Roman Emperor Nero started the fire. The Romans needed someone to blame, and Nero panicked. Then, Nero blamed the fire on the Christians. Soon Christians were being arrested. Some were sent in the arenas and were killed by wild beasts. Pagan holidays was one of the worst times for Christians. Mobs of people would look for Christian neighbors to rob and sometimes stone them to death. Christians would worship in groups within their homes. During the feast of Saturnalia, they would decorate outside their homes with holly and ivy garlands, so their pagan neighbors wouldn't get suspicious. While hiding in their homes during this time, they would celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. Because the holly had thorns on its leaves, they would use it as a symbol of Christ's crown of thorns that he wore on the cross. The green color of the ivy and the holly leaves symbolized eternal life after death, and the red berries symbolized the blood that Christ shed for us. Around 130 AD, during the reign of the Roman Emperor Hadrian, Christmas was being observed as a feast by most Christians under the leadership of Polycarp. However, not all Christians accepted Christmas, and those who didn't all celebrate it at the same time. But those who did celebrate Christmas still used holly and ivy to protect them from persecution. Most of today's Christian traditions and celebrations were adopted from pagan religions. But we Christians shouldn't be ashamed of this. Before we were adopted into God's family, we were once pagans ourselves. But now we are God's children and want to serve Him. Just like the holly and the ivy, we are now being used for His glory. So when you hear Christmas carols about these holiday symbols, you will know its history and remember what God has done for you.
The holly and the ivy, when they are both full grown, of all the trees that are in the wood, the holly bears the crown. The rising of the sun and the running of the deer, the playing of the merry organ, sweet singing in the choir.
The holly bears a blossom as white as lily flower, and Mary bore sweet Jesus Christ to be our sweet Savior. The rising of the sun and the running of the deer, the playing of the merry organ, sweet singing in the choir. There's the crown, the rising of the sun and the running of the deer, the playing of the merry organ, sweet singing in the choir.
The holly and the ivy, when they are both full grown, of all the trees that are in the wood, the holly bears the crown.
The rising of the sun and the running of the deer, the playing of the merry organ, sweet singing in the holly and the ivy, sweet singing in the choir.